If you want to know which direction one nation is heading, then just familiarize yourself with MAGA. You know MAGA, the Make America Great Again movement, which has done anything but make America great again. Well, we have a version of that in Australia as well, making Australia great again, as if Australia is not already great. The evangelical Christians in America make up most of MAGA and the MAGA movement. There's about 70 or 80 million of them, maybe even more, and they are the largest voting bloc in America, part of the Republican Party, and they're the ones who vote for people like Donald Trump. They're extremely powerful people with very powerful lobbies. They are nationalistic, they are racist, they are ultra-right, and One Nation, in my opinion, is almost like a carbon copy of what MAGA is. So lately, One Nation, heading in the direction of MAGA, has started talking about abortion. So they don't want people to have abortions, but yet they support a war economy. They support governments that mass produce weapons and that sell weapons to pretty much anyone who will buy it. And they support wars. Now, I've been posting about this for probably about 15 or so years now, and I've got articles online about some of the Christian preachers standing up there and saying, let's nuclear bomb Iran. And this is not just now. This is from well over a decade ago, even more. Let's nuclear bomb Iran. Now, what kind of a Christian person would stand in a pulpit in front of thousands of people and millions of people online and ask to nuclear bomb an entire country? Do they have any idea of the devastation that will incur? So what happened to wars where adults who were consenting, trained as soldiers, they went to war and they fought other adults who chose to be in a war? What happened to that kind of warfare? The warfare we fight nowadays is basically teenagers in, bunkers playing, killing people with drones and killing people with, and killing thousands of people at one time. It's almost like they're playing some kind of a video game. But MAGA is okay with that, you see, because it's not their children that are being killed, but yet they will stand outside and they'll protest in the cold and in the rain about an abortion because they care about children. But really, they don't really care about children because they're quite happy for their governments to go and kill other people's children. They have no issue with that. So MAGA then is a very contradictory movement in regard to abortion. And I've often challenged MAGA people and I've said, well, what about the 21,000 children that were killed in the last 2.5 years in Gaza? And what about the 160 children that were bombed with the first bomb in Iran? What about them? Why don't you care about them? MAGA people, they get very angry about stuff like that, because they don't care. If somebody else's kids, or especially if it's Muslims, they're happy for them to be getting killed. They actually take great pleasure in that. But yet, they are so worried about kids and children or babies being aborted. So the Old Testament really, and I don't, even though I identify as a Christian, I don't agree with the teachings of the Old Testament. Because the teachings of the Old Testament, in fact, tell people to go out and kill children. And if you don't believe me, read Psalm 137. I mean, there's a lot of verses in the Bible about killing children, but Psalm 137, by the rivers of Babylon, where we sat down and there we wept when we remembered Zion. We all sing that song from Boney M. But if you read to the end of it, it says, when we do get back to Zion, we're going to take your children and we're going to bash their heads against a rock. So it's those aspects of the violent aspects of the Old Testament that I have rejected, and I will not accept them as the principles or the character of God. The character of God then is found in the New Testament. Jesus said, he said, don't stop the little children from coming to me, for theirs is the kingdom of God. Jesus said, if anyone hurts one of these little ones, they may as well put a millstone around their neck and throw them into the ocean. And Jesus did not differentiate between a little white child being aborted in America or a little brown child or a little Palestinian child. Jesus did not differentiate between them. Jesus spoke of all children. So why do you, MAGA, differentiate between aborted children in Western countries and kids in other countries that are not of your ethnicity? Why do you differentiate between them? So in that respect, really, MAGA has lost its way. But Pauline Hanson is very much impressed with Donald Trump and with the MAGA movement. And a lot of the things that she says are basically from MAGA. And that's why I said at the very beginning, if you want to see which direction the One Nation is going, or Pauline Hanson is going, then basically familiarize yourself with the MAGA movement. And of course, that's not very hard to do because the MAGA movement is everywhere at the moment. And it's ironic that the majority of Australians don't like Donald Trump and they don't like MAGA, but they like Pauline Hanson and they like One Nation. Isn't that weird? So I think a lot of the people that you're actually arguing with online are actually these MAGA Christians from America. I am absolutely 100% sure of that. So we've heard the term lately, populist playbook, and Pauline Hanson and One Nation, they play by this populist playbook of MAGA. And they use the same slogan. So MAGA says, we make America great again. And Pauline Hanson or One Nation will say, let's make Australia great again. Australia is already great. Yeah, Australia is a great country. And if you don't see its greatness, then there's something wrong with you. They're also against the woke people. Everybody's woke. You're woke. If you say something that contradicts them, oh, you're woke. Or what's the opposite of woke? You're still asleep. They're anti-immigration. They are media grabbers. They're always pulling a stunt. Donald Trump is always pulling a stunt in front of the media, and so is Pauline Hanson. She's always pulling a stunt. They are also conspiracy theorists. And they're cult-like. And I remember this when Donald Trump stood there and he said, I could take a gun and shoot somebody in the street and my supporters will still vote for me. How true is that? That is so true because they're cultish. They're a cult. And basically what they do is they follow the leader. No matter what the leader says, they will follow the leader and they'll never question the leader. And Pauline Hanson is getting like that too. And she's saying the most ridiculous things. And everybody's saying, go, Pauline, go, go, go. Right? Because it's a cult. You end up with a cult mentality, which takes away all your common sense and all your reasoning and all your rationale. Yeah? And you end up a zombie that votes for people because you are driven by fear and by intimidation of people who are different from you. That's what MAGA is in America, and that's what MAGA is in One Nation in Australia. Thank you for listening. Bye.